Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the grand final of the ESU-Churchill public speaking competition. I'm Adel, and I will be your chair for this presentation. American author Mark Twain once said that there are two types of public speakers: those who are nervous and those who are liars. And today, I have the honour of introducing a skilled masquerader and no doubt powerful public speaker, George Fothergill, in Year 11 from Oundle School, who is going to be delivering a speech on, is America still the land of opportunity? Now, I'm sure we're all aware how much freedom is stressed as one of America's core values, and I'm really intrigued to hear whether this is still the case. George is an avid historian and has a keen interest in political philosophy, so there's really no one better to tell us about this topic. And to my left here is Kate Caldwell in Year 11 from Pate's Grammar School, who is going to be undertaking the role of questioner and allow us to delve deeper into this nuanced topic. But before that, I'd like to hand over to George to begin. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Adele and Kate. Oscar Handlin begins his pioneering book, Uprooted, with the declaration, "Once I thought to write a history of the immigrants of America. Then I discovered the immigrants were American history." The book went on to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1951, being the first in the field of immigration history, and one which captured the essence of America as the land of opportunity. Yet, has this ideal become outdated? Is the American dream starting to crack under the weight of global tensions, or has it already crumbled, and we have simply been believing in an idea obscured by the grime of political motives and undesirable endings? Well, today I hope to provide the briefest of glimpses into the deep and dark palace of Americanism by discussing the past, present, and future states of the land of opportunity. So, what is opportunity? The American dream, a phrase coined back in 1931 by James Trusler Adams. Articulated in the Declaration of Independence as all men are created equal, with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the American dream, the American opportunity, is an intrinsically personal idea, one of starting anew, of leaving behind a closed-minded, class-ridden, and corrupted old world to lead a life of liberty. From the colonists' decision to throw off the yoke of British rule, spilling a lot of tea in the process, from Fitzgerald, Steinbeck, and Miller in fiction to Martin Luther King and Barack Obama in fact, the concept of achieving this opportunity has fascinated and frustrated. But does it still live? And can we still attain it? First, it is undeniably true that a major part of America's foundation was down to immigrants. Many fled oppression in Europe, hoping to found a society in which they could lead their life according to their own beliefs. Theirs was a society of liberty. That, after all, is what the Mayflower programs sought in the New World. Others were those displaced by the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, scattered by an increasingly mechanized Europe. Theirs was the opportunity to prosper. Yet here we encounter the first of many obstacles blocking the road to American idealism. For the views of the colonists in many ways conflicted with the existing lives of the First Nation, and the image of Thanksgiving-style amicability is not the whole picture. From early settlements to westward expansion, the peoples of the First Nation were backed into useless corners of land and stripped of their identity. Similarly, as we move through the country's history, we are confronted repeatedly by issues of race and prejudice. The land of the brave and the home of the free seems a land of contradictions, with equality enshrined in the Constitution, yet put to flight on the streets. Yes, America may have been a land of opportunity, but for whom? The contradictions have persisted. The popular view of America as a shining land of progression simply does not equate with the scenes we see so often in the news of police brutality, gender inequality, gun crime, and xenophobia. Nevertheless, the opportunities are there. Businesses are easier to set up in America, taking on average just 4 days. Entrepreneurship in the US is far more viable than in much of the world, with immigrants fanning 43% of all recent Silicon Valley companies. Geographically, America is an enormous country, rich and imposing. From the Florida wetlands to the Alaskan tundra, no two states are the same, both in terms of landscape and law. Yet, across the United States, the immense opportunities on offer to some are still not available to all. Opportunities should be open equally to new immigrants, to the descendants of those first settlers, to those whose ancestors worked the plantations in servitude, and to the remaining First Nations, whose land this once was. Momentum, however, is building. From Black Lives Matter to the Me Too campaigns, from the writings of such as Morrison, Angelou, and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and in the raised voices of speakers like Holder, Rosa Brooks, and Gorman, passionate individuals are using America as a powerful driver for social change. Since the 13th Amendment banned slavery in 1865, the prospect of civil rights has ground its way forward through a resistant past, and it continues to inch closer to true equality of opportunity. To the past, present, and future citizens of America, inheritors of that land of opportunity, continue down the path to a new equality and build not a palace, but a home for the free. It may be a hard road, but it is down to you to finish it. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank you, George. That was a really rousing speech. And I was particularly interested to hear about the role that immigrants had in kind of the success of America. And I'm sure Kate would love to follow up on that. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, George, for that absolutely amazing speech. As Adel said, immigration has a great importance in American history. So why do you think American society is so against immigration now?
Well, I think what it comes down to in the end is a lack of education. I think that much of the sort of xenophobia that we see in American culture comes from misunderstandings of other countries' cultures. And I think so the way to solve this is by educating people on the wonderful cultures that exist out there in the world, to kind of reconnect minority communities with the majority in order to kind of start that discourse again to get things moving towards the sort of true equality of opportunity that we want.
Are there any countries or societies you think America could maybe emulate to look for an ideal of how to help educate people?
That's a very good question, Kate. I think it's naive to suggest that there's any country on the planet which has truly achieved equality to the fullest extent. And there's so many examples in the modern world of that. And I think really America should be the leading figure in this regard because it was founded upon principles of liberty, upon principles of freedom, upon principles of equality. So I think it should be the one leading the way.
So, of course, if America should be the one leading the way, you imply that it isn't. Yet many people see it as this golden beacon of just amazingness, really. And so why do you think people see it in such a good light?
Well, I think the American dream has undoubtedly become very heavily politicized. It has certainly been exploited by both political parties throughout many decades since the dawn of the 20th century. I mean, Trump's election campaign from 2016 comes to mind. And so I think this sort of twisting of the dream to a purpose has not only created this sense that, oh, it is all fine, but also has kind of lost sense of what it truly was, because Trump's campaign certainly wasn't about the sort of true founding principles of liberty.
So do you think maybe then that the American dream is an unachievable ideal?
No, actually, I think it is entirely achievable. But I think in order for that to be achieved, we need to look to these passionate individuals who are doing all they can to try and achieve it. I mean, Rosa Brooks, for example, is leading the innovative policing initiative in Michigan to reconnect disenfranchised minority communities and the police forces that protect them. And it's work like this by such empowering individuals that we should really try to emulate, not only in America but also in the UK, to sort of move along the path.
So you mentioned in your speech about a lot of the historical factors that have impacted how America is today. But how do you think modern factors like social media could impact American society now?
Well, I think social media has undoubtedly led to an increase in the polarization of American society because of echo chambers and the way social media algorithms work. Democrats would be shown only democratically swayed political articles, for example. And so I think in that regard, social media has been very unhelpful in hindering the constructive discourse that's needed. But it also has great potential in we've seen how Black Lives Matter has spread over social media. So it's definitely a double-edged blade, social media.
Thank you, George. Those are all of my questions.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, for some insightful questions, and George for some equally as insightful answers. But now, I'd like to open it up to you, the audience, for any questions you may have for George. Oh, yes.
So you said in 1931, during the Great Depression, they created the American dream. How is that possible when we say all men are equal, with equal opportunity, when there are lots of racial injustice?
So the phrase American Dream was coined by James Truscott Adams in 1931. But that's not to say that the idea didn't exist beforehand. In fact, the founding principles of America are arguably what encompasses the American Dream. Yet I entirely agree with you that it is a contradiction. Influences of slavery, of segregation, of gender inequality. These things have propagated throughout American history to such an extent that I entirely agree that it's foolish to say that the American Dream has ever existed truly. But that's not to say that it cannot be achieved.
Yes.
Would you suggest the state system kind of gets in the way of opportunity, or do you think it helps opportunity to be more accessible to people?
Well, the electoral system in America is quite complicated, to say the least. But one of the sort of main flaws with it is with the electoral college system, of how the president is decided, and how some states are disproportionately represented compared to others. And what this leads to is situations like we had in 2016, where Trump won the electoral college vote, but won less of the public vote, which arguably simply is not democracy.
Thank you very much, audience, for your questions, but I'm afraid that's all we have time for. So, what have we all learnt today? Well, I've learnt that the idea of opportunity in America is viewed as one's human right, and this is dating back to the Constitution. But while opportunities are being offered to some, they're not always being offered to others. Prejudice against race, income, gender, sexuality, and many more factors is the primary cause for this inequality. And as we learnt from the questioning, by spreading awareness and educating the public, we can cure this misunderstanding. But the good news is, there is potential for things to change. For example, social movements such as Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and Rosa Books' police initiative, showing us that there is still room for America to become what it was forsaken to be, the land of opportunity. Now, before I finish, I'd first of all like to thank George for an articulate and eloquently delivered speech that really provided a valuable insight onto whether America is still the land of opportunity. I'd like to thank Kate for her pertinent and thought-provoking questions, the esteemed judges, of course, for their valuable time, our MC Hugh Jones and the ESU for giving us the opportunity to stand up here and speak to you all today, and of course, you, the audience, for your active engagement and participation throughout today's presentation. An ancient Buddhist philosophy states that three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And the truth is that it's about time that the American dream became a reality. Thank you very much.
You were really good. You were amazing.